Welcome back. We have two esteemed scholars here from Canada presenting on From Trash Talk to Threats, Rethinking Platform Accountability for Toxicity in Online Games. So whichever one of you is sharing your screen, let's proceed and do that. How are you guys doing today?
Very good.
Good.
Welcome. All right, you look like that was quick. You're all set up, so I'm going to just hand it off to you and take it away.
So, hello everyone. Today we will present two different presentations. So the first one is going to be on toxicity, and the second one right after is going to be on privacy laws and video games. So our first presentation is called From Trash Talk to Threats, Rethinking Platform Accountability for Toxicity in Online Games. And really, it's been quite a journey studying the question of toxicity in video games. And we're going to share with you really why we think it's important to talk about toxicity in video games.
Gabriel, I have a problem with my mic, sorry. I'm trying to...
No worries.
Okay, I can do it now.
And if need be, you can always. Oh, okay. Yep,
Good.
you're good.
So really the question is why talk about toxicity in video games? Why is it important? Well, first of all, experiencing toxicity is unpleasant, and especially for some groups that are vulnerable, for example, such as children who play video games. So really, it's a bad idea to encourage toxicity in video games. And we think that there's also kind of a normalization of some unacceptable and dangerous sometimes behaviors online in video games. And also, we think that toxicity in video games gives video games and players, people who play video games, a really bad image. You know, it shows that we are unprofessional, for example. And there's already a lot of prejudice against the gaming community. And toxicity, the fact that toxicity exists in video games, it really reinforces some of these prejudice and we think legitimizes some of them. And really, the starting question that we had was, why don't we talk more about fair play in video game? Why don't we emphasize the importance of fair play in video games?
Yes, and I'm really happy Gabriel is saying we, because we didn't mention it, but we are avid gamers. We love the game we are talking about today, like in particular League of Legends. So we are not happy with the situation. So we are not here just to criticize the game. We love it. So we just want to improve the environment around the game. So what is toxicity? I'm pretty sure you have some idea about what it is, like you have example coming to your mind. But here are like the diversity of behaviors we have mapped based on the literature. So something like trash talking, misinformation, flaming, inappropriate role playing, spamming, griefing, threat, hate raiding, hate speech, sexual harassment, aiding the enemy, contrary play, in-game cheating, doxing, and swatting. So as you can see, and inhibiting teams. As you can see, we have two different types of behaviors. We have verbal behaviors and actions. So like verbal, for instance, trash talking, spamming, flaming, griefing, sexual harassment, and on the other side, actions like swatting, doxing, which are among the most dangerous one.
And so one of the ways we were classifying these behaviors is really whether or not we think they are legally actionable. For example, behaviors such as griefing might not involve some future lawsuits or criminal charges, but some of the behaviors we see online that we consider toxic, that are really problematic, are behaviors that could lead to criminal charges. Take example, sexual harassment, threats of violence, death threats. So all these behaviors are really what interests us the most. And like we did a little for you, we went to see the criminal code, and basically we put the little articles of the criminal code. Look at this. Threats of violence, it's a criminal offense in Canada because we're Canadian researchers. Hate speech, hate rating, sexual harassment, of course, doxing. So all these behaviors could have criminal charges. Could make it so that the person who does them be criminally charged. So that's really something that we have to consider when we study toxicity online.
And let's be clear, we are mentioning the Canadian Criminal Code because it's where we live and where we do our research. But you could technically, with the for example we have here on the screen, you could it's almost universal that it's forbidden by criminal law. So it's not only Canada. Like if you look at California, where Riot is based, you have things about threat of violence, of course, sexual harassment as well. So it's not only a Canadian thing, of course, but I think it's important to mention it. Swatting as well. So why are the people so toxic or so mean? You have some environmental and community factor. When I started to work in this field, I was talking with my students who are younger than me, and I was shocked, like just to think that you could be like your life could be threatened online. I was like, it's something very shocking. My students were like, "Oh, professor, you are too serious. You know, it's for fun. It's not serious." So you have a community accepting this type of behavior, and it's something that has become normal, you know. And I had some very interesting exchange on Twitter with players and some developer from Riot telling me that no, it's not serious, it's not for real. So it's almost okay to have this kind of behavior. So we can come back on this and discuss it more. Second factor, player personality and social factors. Research have shown that depending on the profile of the player, some of them will be more or less toxic. There is something linked to narcissistic personality, it seems. So it is also linked to the individual, but not only, because again, the environmental and also like the game itself. We have a colleague, Maud Bonenfant, working at UQAM in Montreal. She's working on persuasive design and toxicity and showing how some game mechanics can increase toxicity among players. When you have a game that is very competitive, where every move you make give you a reward and only to you and not to the other player, for instance, of your team, it can encourage toxicity. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this in games where you are flaming your teammates because you thought that the kill was yours or something like this. So it's multi-factor and it's not only the individual. That's why, like, when you look at the problem, it's a complex problem, and you can not only blame the individual. The company, the platform also has a responsibility here, we think. So now let's look at the phenomenon itself, and like just to think if toxicity is widespread in online video games. And here is a quote I really like from Riot, which is still online, by the way. You can still find it on the blog of Riot, and they tell you that only 5% of the players are consistently disruptive. There are things that for 95% of the among all the players that get tilted every once in a while, 95%, sorry, of regular players who get tilted every once in a while, they make up for 86% of the report, meaning that for them, almost all reports are for things that are acceptable. What I don't like with this quote and the approach of Riot is that it's not about the nature of the behavior, it's about the frequency of it. You know, if you get tilted once in a while, it seems it's okay for them. So you can, like, does it mean that you can threat the life of someone once in a while when you get tilted? Or like the first time you do it, it's serious enough that we should do something. So I really don't like this approach because it seems that they say that like there is a culture and it's almost okay with it. The nature of the behavior doesn't matter. And as we have shown at the very beginning of the presentation, you have a wide variety of behaviors, and they are not equivalent. Like griefing is not the same as threatening the life of someone. And I think we should make this distinction.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I mean, us as jurists to see this quote because they try, in a sense, they take an approach where they care more about the frequency of the behavior than the nature of the behavior. So it's really interesting. But now we're going to look at basically how do online platforms deal with toxicity? Like, do they act to try to quash this toxicity? So basically what we found out is that most of the online video game platforms do have a code of conduct. So they do have a code of conduct. For example, League of Legends, the games we play that we love, they have a code of conduct. If you look at their terms of services, they will say that there's some behavior that is considered unacceptable. The question now is the effectiveness of these codes of conduct. Are they applied? Are they respected by the player? Also, what's interesting is that this is a quote from PIGI, which is the equivalent of the ESRB in Europe. They clearly, it's a very powerful institution. They clearly condemn toxic behavior, as you can look, abusive behavior, defamatory, racist behavior. All that is condemned and should be banned. So that's something that's also interesting, that these big organizations are trying to hack. So that's something that's good and they taken seriously. But also there are some problems. In our research, one of the main issues that we have is the lack of transparency from some of the video game platforms to have data on how many players that are toxic, what's the kind of behaviors that they do. So it's really hard to find this data. The companies are not necessarily really transparent on it. But we do have some insights from the pro players. That's also something we thought about. For example, if you look at the rules for esports championships, there are some clear rules and sanctions for toxic behaviors. A team could get suspended, could get suspended from the tournament, etc. So there is some insight from pro players about what we could do to quash this toxic behavior. And a fun or sad fact is that in some games it's probably easier and quicker, unfortunately, to get banned for leaving a game or being AFK than for making death threats, which is much more problematic, you know.
Yeah, and we had a very recent example because in November one streamer got actually banned for making violent threat online during a live. So he was banned, and Riot is making a lot of like publicity around it. I'm very happy, and I told them like, guys, great, you are showcasing this case. What about like the normal people, the player who are not high profile streamers or high profile player? What do you do? And in our experience and the way we can sit on the platform, it's not exactly the same which is happening, and we'll come back to this right now actually.
Yeah, and we see a lot of irony in the situation because making a death threat online could get you in jail in Canada, could get you prison time. It's considered a crime in Canada and in a lot of jurisdictions. But if you look at a game like League of Legends, maybe it's gonna get you a couple of days banned, you know? So there's really a big difference between the way the judicial system and these video games companies sometimes deal with this behavior, and that can also raise some concerns and be problematic. And that the other argument that we have kind of makes the link with our second presentation is that we have companies that collect a ton of data. They clearly have no problem with the burden of proof because sometimes they collect the chat logs. So they have all the data that they need to prove that there's a problem, if they want to sanction players, etc. But it seems that they have a really big concern for protecting offenders' privacy, from what we observe, than ensuring safety, for example. And we find that quite ironic because it's companies that collect immense data and sometimes sell that data, you know.
Yeah, and Gabriel, I've mentioned it. We have a lot of lack of transparency, like in this field. We don't exactly know what they are doing. The code is very clear of this platform, but like the way they apply it, it's a black box. We don't know like the way they do it. We are starting to get some information from Europe, and I'm saying this and I'm smiling because it's not because the company are willing to share this information. It's because they are forced to with a new regulation in Europe. So we start to have new data about the number of reports made to a platform and the way they are dealing with these reports. We are still analyzing the data because right now the reports we have seen from companies are very different, very hard to analyze. It's a lot of information, but we start to have something, but it's only for Europe. And right now we don't have anything like this in North America. We don't have anything in Asia like this. As far as I know, I'm not quite sure about China, but I never heard about it. So we'll see what is coming from Europe, and we'll see if they are actually starting to use the same kind of report in North America. And I have a bit of hope because when you look at loot box, they have generalized it to the world. It started in Asia, in China, because they were obliged to, display the probability of what you get from a loot box. And now it's everywhere, including in North America, where they have absolutely no obligation to do it. So for this topic, they did it. For Toxicity, I'm not sure because the light it puts on your company might not be a great one. So I have some hope, but not too much. And yeah. Alors, so we think it's a complete absurd situation because Riot has all the necessary tools to act fast on Toxicity. As Gabriel said, they collect a ton of data, so they know exactly what is happening on their platform. Now they have AI tools to detect some very specific words. And as you could see on the previous slide, we had the word hitman in the chat. So either we are talking about the video game, or if you look a bit at the context, you can see it's a death threat. So I don't understand why it doesn't lead to an automatic ban. I had to report the player, I had to argue with the support services, and I will give you example of our exchange, to just like know that they will take it seriously. I won't be informed of the output of the investigation, because it seems they need to investigate the chat log, to protect the privacy of the player. Again, the policies of the platform, like Riot, are pretty clear. So there is no question that they don't tolerate violent behaviors such as death threat. But I mean, worst case scenario in the case I've experienced, it's like 15-day suspension. And they tell me that they protect the privacy of the player, but a lot of your data are actually public. You can track what the games of players. So you can see when a player is stopping to play. So I'm just assuming that the player got 15-day suspension between, there was a gap in his history. So either he was in holiday or he was banned for 15 days. Yeah, so, and the platform seems very reluctant to respect the regulation. I will show you my exchange with the support services. When you mention the law, they don't seem to care very much. When you talk about law that is not US law, it's even worse. Like, we try to bring up like Canadian law because we are playing in Canada, so they were supposed to respect it, but we didn't have any luck with this. So here are some answers from the support services, and you can see it's quite fun, I would say. I mean, I take it like this because otherwise I will cry. So, like, first they told me like they understand like why I'm upset, because words can be sharp blades. We are talking about death threats, so they tell me it's sharp blades. Here they told me that they cannot report to the police because it's not the way cybercrime investigation works. So the support services is, it seems, expert in terms of legal procedures, and they tell me it's not the way cybercrime investigation works. So they don't do anything. And here you can see why they didn't report. I mean, what someone told me, they told me that they need concrete, solid evidence. So they have all the chat logs. I mean, I could try to Photoshop it, but they have all the data themselves because they collect it. So there is no problem of like getting the concrete and solid evidence. And here the support services told me it's something I heard online or in real life. I would expect something more professional from the support services of Riot. So we have contacted the legal services to get more information about this. We are still waiting for the answer. I think it's 3 months. I'm waiting for an answer from them. So what can we do? What can we hope in the meantime to face these behaviors? So our wish, at least, is a better implementation of the platform policies, more transparency, more severity about the behaviors, the toxic behavior. And again, we want to stress that it's not about every toxic behaviors. It's only about criminal toxic behaviors. Griefing, flaming, things that are part of the game, I would say, and that are under criminal law. I would say like it's up to the platform and they decide what they want to do with this. But for criminal toxic behavior, there is no negotiation about this. I mean, it should be more severe. More collaboration between the platform and the public authorities. It has started in some area, like for instance, for swatting, for doxxing, they take it more seriously. So in some countries, not all countries, they would contact the police when there are this kind of behavior online, when they spot it, because we had like some very bad cases in the past, but it's not generalized. In Europe now, for some cases, they have an obligation to do it as well. So I just hope it will be generalized one day. And maybe something to do if they are still reluctant to take the topic and the issue seriously. If they keep telling us that it's only 5% of the player, maybe one solution would be to create a wall of shame for the platform to show that like the quantity of toxic behavior, the gravity of it, and maybe force them to change because it's a very, very bad publicity for them. And it's very bad for the community in general. And that's the end of our presentation. So now we can take questions from the public.
All right, thank you so much. Would you prefer me to read the question or for me to throw it in the chat?
You can read it to me, yeah.
All right.
To us, yeah.
Has your research found how this impacts women or gender minorities in particular?
Oh, it's
Maybe I
good
could
again.
take this one. I mean, it's something that we're starting to really study because when we started to look at the reports in Europe, some of them said that there were no reports made by the player for sexual harassment, which I found, well, what we found quite surprising. So now it's something that we really want to dig deep on, especially these questions of is it either minorities or women, are they more targeted? So it's really something for the future that we're looking to explore. Yeah.
Yeah. From what I can see in the few articles you can find online, yeah, for women it's for instance they are targeted even harder by toxicity. We know for in some games when you have the voice chats, it's really bad. Like people hear it's a women, it's terrible what you can hear. And yeah, we have a student who is coming next year at the university to study this more in detail. Yeah. And as Gabriel said, we have the report from Europe now, so we can start to see trends in this year, maybe.
Question, what specific video games do you guys play?
Gabriel?
Well, I think both of us are a League of Legends player. We love that game, and that's why we also work on video game law because we're passionate about video games. And I also play a lot of Minecraft too.
Mhm. And it's a very interesting question because it's important to know what we play because you know in this field if you want information usually you have to play the game. You cannot just only go online and try to look at the website of this platform because you won't have access to everything. So technically, like if we want to make this research even broader, we will need to play Valorant, we need to play like the major games in the field to see like how is it on this platform because every game is different, the environment is different. Valorant, you have the voice element, so it can be very different, like in just the gravity of the behaviors, the intensity of the behaviors. So it's important to study like different games. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we talk about toxicity, toxicity varies a lot from game to game, depending on the game design.
Yeah.
And that's something also that we have to consider in our research is that some video games make the player be more toxic because of how the game is designed.
Yeah. And if you don't want to play the game again, in Europe, you start to have like report because there is a level of player. And if you are big enough, you have to do a report about this issue. And we have a report from Nintendo. And it's very interesting because if you compare the report, and I just look at them briefly, but Nintendo was reporting more complaint from the players than other games. And I was very surprised because Nintendo, you know, family-oriented company, you could expect less toxicity. But so we have to compare the numbers. We have to see who reports what. It will be very interesting. But you also have a window here. You have something you can look at there.
All right, Maker Central has a burning desire to know what your ranks are in League of Legends.
Well, right now it's unranked because I had a really busy semester, but the highest I've ever been was Emerald.
I think I've picked at silver one, and I stopped playing ranked because I made a vow to finish a book on video games before I can play ranked again, and because it's very toxic. So now I just play normal, but my rank is very low. I tried everything. I tried coaching with Mike Young, an ex-professional. I tried to watch a lot of videos, but I cannot climb. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
All right, next question. Could Riot Games' creation of its own integrity committees, instead of aligning with the ethical policies and guidelines of each country, be interpreted as an indication that publishers seek to avoid partnerships with an interference from public authorities, even in cases of toxic behavior and ethically questionable conduct?
Short answer, I would say yes. Um, and yeah, you know, like because the sector is very used to self-regulation. They love to design their own rules and say, look at what we are doing. We're so good. Look at ESRB. It's from the actors of the industry, like setting up like a classification, and you know, to some extent, it's good. Like I think it's a bit outdated now, but to some extent it works. But it's very like typical of this industry to self-regulate. And I find it even more shocking, because when we talk about like bad behavior online, we talk about Facebook, Twitter, we are used to social network, but we don't talk about video game platforms. And for me, it's like, I don't know why, because we think we have fun on this platform, so nothing bad can happen. And also something very different from social network is that a lot of these behaviors are not staying for long. The chat, the death threat I got, it was after a game in the chat where the two teams can speak. But if I don't take a screenshot, I don't have a copy of this. Only Riot has one, so it will disappear. The toxicity during a game, it's only involved 10 people. It's a tactic on League of Legends. Some people would add you as a friend. You say yes, they will insult you for 30 seconds and then block you. And so you have no track because the chat then is erased. You cannot even report them, or you could report them and Riot could look into the chat, but you don't have a proof yourself. So yeah, it's very problematic, and I think self-regulation have shown its limit in this field. And here again, we are talking about criminal behavior. We are talking about something that the state should care about because it's criminal behavior. I'm not talking about sub-criminal behavior.
Next question. Has there been any consideration of the player cultures of these games in counting whether these death threats are actionable or not? For example, in many cases, these are toxic behaviors, but may not have the full sincerity of a real death threat behind them and seems more like an advanced level of banter and thus might be a little incongruent to treat them as full throttled death threats. What are your thoughts on that?
If I may, there is no such thing as no real death threat. If you look at the criminal law, if it's a death threat, it's a death threat, no matter your intention. It's about the way I feel threatened, and it's not about the seriousness of it. Like, probably the person might be like a minor doing this, might be someone who is absolutely not serious about it. It doesn't matter. It's still a crime, and you did the crime. So like, and there should be a response, and you never know. I had this debate with Riot. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for someone to actually do it, to take it seriously? Or and who are you to say it's not serious as a platform? I mean, Riot, I'm not the person who has the question. Like, who are you to decide it's not serious? And I will tell you more. I actually contacted the police, and I made a mistake because I waited too long to contact them, according to them. It's technically, legally, I was not wrong to do this and to wait a bit. But I contacted them, and they kind of had the same reasoning. They told me, okay, we won't take your complaint because you are not under threat. And I'm like, how? I'm calling you. I feel threatened. How come? And they said, no, it's like 10 months. So we don't think you are threatened. We don't deal with this. And I think it's a problem because legally, like, there is no prescription, like the prescription was not over. So I could still report the crime, and they should do something. And again, if something happened, what do we do? Like, who is taking the gamble here?
And if I might just add to that, even if you can't put criminal charges on these crimes, which is not the case, but even if that was the case, the companies can still act privately to ban these players. Like they have no obligation to keep your account open. So even if the company doesn't want to like go to the police and make a police report, they can always ban you permanently, sanction you in the game. So there are other tools for companies, even if we don't go to the judicial sanction or the criminal sanction. And what we found out is sometimes they don't do even that.
And we are not calling for these people to go to jail, to be clear, but at least for the company to do something and to say it's not a culture I want to encourage. And I don't think it's a culture they want to encourage. But the problem is that it's what they write in their code. It's not what they do in practice. So yeah, there is a gap here.
Since you all are presenting next, we'll have time for one more question. How do you contend with the anonymous nature of the players issuing threats naturally reducing the severity of them? It's a similar phenomenon on platforms like X. Do these other platforms handle these differently? I think that's an interesting question of how do other platforms you might be aware of handle it differently, maybe?
I didn't study X to see like how they do with this. We should look into it. But I think
I'm pretty sure X doesn't handle it at all.
yeah, in the US, it's basically like the platform is not responsible for what people post. So it's up to you to report the person and eventually for the police to contact X to get information because X knows exactly where the person is. I was going to say who the person is, but not maybe the name, but they have a lot of information, including localization. So they could act. Usually what they do is that they wait for the police to contact them, which make it like very slow and very inefficient because most people won't do it, you know? Like at the very beginning of this research, I was like very eager to collect all the toxicity. Now, you know, the game is over. Someone is insulting me. Next, I just close it and block. And it's not good. It's not good because then I accept it and I make it normal, you know, and acceptable. So yeah, but yeah, we should look into other platform because I know, yeah, we should definitely.
All right, well, let's get you set up for the next presentation here. We could go on forever on that topic. So whoever is sharing their